Spring is a magical time in gardening because it's the time where everything blooms. And that's really one of the main attractions of gardening is beautiful flowering plants. If you're feeding it with the soil and try to make that soil as healthy as possible and rely on the soil to do everything for the plant, you'll see a big difference in bloom. If you want to learn how to maximize bloom and maximize quality of bloom, size of bloom, length bloom lasts, tune into this video. We'll cover it all for you right here. Our work at this garden was born out of a request, the owner's request, to improve everything about the garden, including the blooming of the plants and lots of other problems that were occurring on an ongoing basis. If you want to learn all about those issues by using soil-based gardening, that's as opposed to chemical-based gardening, tune into our channel and check out all our videos that go into depth on soil-based gardening. I'm John Valentino, president of John and Bob's Corporation. I'm a longtime landscape contractor and landscape architect. And this is Chip Valentino, who's been working with me now for several years. And we both enjoy the springtime where we can look at fabulous flowers. And one of the reasons Chip likes this garden so much and all the gardens we work on is because of soil-based gardening, where we're feeding the soil rather than chemically feeding plants. All the products are safe for Chip. No worry of toxicity for dogs or pets of any kind, or kids or people. So it's really the right way to garden, where you're feeding the soil and allowing the soil to maximize bloom. The owner of this garden contacted me in July of last year, 2020, with a list of challenges and problems that she was having in the garden. And we immediately switched her style of gardening from a more chemical-based, where she's feeding plants with chemical fertilizer, to a soil-based, where we're building life in the soil. So we like to call that soil-based gardening. One of the real benefits of that is that maximizes bloom and production of all kinds. So whether you're growing vegetables or fruit, if you're feeding it with the soil and try to make that soil as healthy as possible and rely on the soil to do everything for the plant, you'll see a big difference in bloom. And that was, we did that first application in July, then we did another one, mostly of blend and supplemental nourish-biosol. So the blend is the combination of our optimize, maximize, and nourish-biosol. And the whole idea is we have all these organic inputs that are making the soil more alive and making the soil capable of even producing its own nutrients and feeding plants and preventing pests and disease on plants. So we did the July application right after being contacted, and then we did one in the fall, and then we did one in the early spring. Mostly a blend and nourish-biosol, a little bit of penetrate here and there where I thought penetrate would be beneficial. And the owner is reporting to me right now the bloom is just more spectacular this spring than ever before. It's not exactly a double-blind study, but in her anecdotal description, she's saying the bloom looks about double what normally a lot of these plants don't usually bloom like this. Some of them hardly bloom. One that's just spectacular, and you'll notice it in the video, is the amaryllis. Just amazing, beautiful pink blooms, and they're looking about as colorful as they can look. So check out all the flowers, and at the heart of that is this idea of soil-based gardening. So I don't think it's a new concept, but one many gardeners have gotten away from, feeding the soil. And you can feed the soil with compost or earthworm castings. We make a special line of products specifically for feeding the soil, as opposed to feeding plants directly, where you ignore the soil and allow plants to just take the nutrients from chemical additions. And when you do that, that doesn't build the soil. And if you're not building the soil, it's not able to provide everything, every protection that soil should provide to plants, which involves keeping them healthy and making them produce flowers and fruits and vegetables at their maximum. This idea of, instead of using chemical fertilizer, which a lot of times the result of that would, since you're not building the soil, you're not allowing the soil to develop what it needs to protect the plant, you're more likely to get aphid and rust and all kinds of mildew and almost every disease there is out there, even mysterious diseases that we don't exactly know how to cure. For instance, fungal disease, the best way to cure it is by building beneficial fungi in the soil, and beneficial fungi is way more powerful than any destructive fungus. So when we're feeding plants directly with chemical fertilizer, then we're more likely to get weeds, diseases, pests, and then when we respond to those pests, weeds, diseases, we damage the soil further. When we damage the soil further, then we need more chemical fertilizer the next time. And so we're on this treadmill of feeding plants and not allowing the plants to be fed in a natural way from soil, which then protects them against every pest and disease there is. So let us know if any flowers here catch your attention. There's some pretty spectacular ones. There's these azaleas behind me, and they're all over this garden here and there, which aren't low maintenance, so they're not for many people, and they also require a good amount of water, but they're spectacular here. We fed those with our Life in the Soil, and they're really doing great. Another one that's you should look at in this video that's just as nice as I've seen is the amaryllis here. Check out the amaryllis. And then there's some things that don't really grow in our area, but I think if you make your soil as healthy as possible and you've got some borderline things you want to grow, maybe your area is too hot or too cold, you can probably do it with really healthy soil. Peonies are really hard to grow here, and mostly people try to do it, but not successfully. We have a beautiful peony growing here. So if any of these get your attention and you'd like to comment on them or ask us questions about flowers or plants, do so in the comments below. So sometimes when I describe to my clients exactly how this soil-based gardening impacts pest and disease reduction, I'm looking at them and I can kind of see the eyes roll back in their head, which means they're about to be very bored with what I'm telling them. So I'm going to try to just go through it quickly. If you'd like to know more about it, you can contact us or you can look it up. There's lots of interesting information of this type online. But one of the most compelling ways that soil-based gardening prevents pests and disease is most pests, their life cycle starts in the soil. So if you have a lively soil, all those beneficial nematodes and fungi and protozoa and good bacteria, that they are going to eat the lowest form of those pests before so the larvae form, before it blossoms out into something really destructive. So we can dramatically control pests just by having lively soil. If we're killing off all that lively soil because we're not building the soil and all those impacts that damage soil take place, then when larvae form, they burst forth and they start doing their thing, eating the plants all around them. Other ways are also pretty interesting and maybe kind of boring to you. Let me go through another one pretty quickly. All pests, their exoskeleton is made of chitin. And so when plants sense chitin is near them, that means that there's a chance that it's a pest. And if it senses chitin, it can go into a mode of making chitinase, and chitinase is a natural pesticide that plants make. There's a lot of mechanisms like that. Some we don't even understand well, but there's lots of ways where plants are protecting themselves against pests and disease, and they all depend on beneficial soil microbes. And if your soil is alive, you've got a chance to address these without you doing anything. You can just sit back and allow your lively soil to do its work in a natural way. that's what soil-based gardening is all about. That's what our products are all about. We're trying to come up with ways that you can do simple, affordable inputs to make that lively soil. Now the question is, we agree that soil-based gardening is the way to go, and these blooms are spectacular. So what's the best way to achieve healthy soil in your garden? And there is more than one way. Obviously, compost, very high quality compost, is effective, and that's a way that's touted by most people. What we've tried to do with our product line is mimic compost with easier to work with and really higher quality on a constant level amendments that are concentrated and easy to throw on topically so that anyone can do it. Doesn't take much time, doesn't involve big piles of anything. So these are products like Maximize, Nourish-biosol, Optimize, and Penetrate are designed to do what compost does in your soil and do it easily and make it so you don't have to do it that many times. So once or twice a year is really beneficial. People ask me all the time, can I use it more often? Yes, you can, but even once a year will do fantastic things. There's a lot of discussion online about this idea of including beneficial microbes in products like ours and whether there is any benefit to it and whether there is some harm to it. It is true that we can't provide beneficial microbes that are going to be appropriate in every soil all over the world, because all of the beneficial microbes in different localities vary some, although there are common ones that reoccur in very many places. So the whole point here is we're not providing beneficial microbes in order to make sure those thrive in your soil. What we're trying to do is provide beneficial microbes and food for microbes and attractants for microbes to make sure your best beneficial complex soil life thrives in your garden. And it could vary from how the input starts out, but we want it to result in complex life. And so that's the whole premise behind all of our products. There's food for life, there's attractants for soil life, and there's some life itself, all of those designed to allow you to make your soil much more full of life. And life in the soil is the key to healthy turf, healthy plants, better bloom, disease-free vegetable gardens. Pretty much everything that you want in gardening is based on the health of your soil. I believe it's the most important part of gardening, and that's why we dedicate our whole product line to soil health. So if more and better blooms intrigue you, go to our website at johnandbobs.com, and there look at all of our soil-based products, which will do a great job of infusing your soil with life and making it so you can maximize bloom in your garden. Another video we did that's similar is chemical fertilizer bad for your soil? Check that one out. It's very similar to this, and it has more information on the topic and it would allow you to learn more about our system of soil-based gardening.